September 23, 1925, Fremont County Fairgrounds, Iowa. Sunrise breaking over muddy fields still wet from overnight rain. A single Fordson Model F tractor sat at the starting line. Engine cold, 20 horsepower waiting to prove a point. Across from it, 40 draft horses. Percherons, Belgians, Clydesdales. 8,000 pounds each. 40 animals representing everything farmers had ever known about working the land. The bet was simple. Pull a gang plow through 1 acre of virgin prairie soil. First to finish wins. The stakes? At the future of American agriculture. Nobody expected the tractor to stand a chance. The horses belonged to the Midwest Teamsters Association, an organization of professional horsemen who'd spent the previous 2 years traveling county fairs with one message. Tractors were a fad, expensive, unreliable, dangerous. They'd demonstrated at 17 fairs that summer. And every time, their horse teams had outperformed whatever tractor showed up. Sometimes it wasn't even close. At the Madison County Fair in July, a case tractor had broken down after 30 yards. The horses finished the acre in 11 minutes while mechanics still worked on the engine. But this day was different. The Fordson weighed 2,700 pounds, steel wheels with cleats for traction, a 4-cylinder engine that ran on kerosene after starting on gasoline. No cab, no fenders, just an open frame with a seat and controls. The driver was Thomas Mitchell, a Ford dealer from Des Moines who'd sold exactly 3 tractors in the past year. He needed this win. The dealer network needed this win. Henry Ford himself had telegram-specific instructions. Demonstrate reliability, demonstrate efficiency, demonstrate the future. The horses were arranged in teams of 4, 10 teams total, connected to a series of plows designed to work the soil in a single pass. Each team had a driver, 40 reins to manage, 40 animals that needed to pull in perfect coordination. The logistics alone were staggering. But it was also theater. The horses looked magnificent in the morning light, muscles rippling, brass hardware gleaming. The crowd loved them. 3,000 people had paid admission to watch, and most came expecting to see the tractor fail. At 800 hours, the starter fired a pistol. Mitchell opened the throttle. The Fordson lurched forward, cleats digging into wet earth, pulling a 3-bottom plow that cut 18 inches deep. Black smoke poured from the exhaust stack. The engine screamed. Not the sound of power, but the sound of mechanical strain. A kerosene-burning motor working at its absolute limit. The plow blades caught roots, rocks, decades of compacted prairie. So the tractor slowed. 5 miles per hour. 4, 3.5. The horses, meanwhile, moved like water. Synchronized. Effortless. Their drivers had worked together for months, knew exactly how to balance the load across 10 teams. The horses pulled steady, 6 miles per hour, muscles built for this exact work. They'd been bred for it, trained for it, fed for it. This was what they were made to do. By the quarter-acre mark, the horses were 50 yards ahead. The crowd cheered. As the teamsters smiled, everything was going according to plan. Another tractor humiliated. Another nail in the coffin of this mechanical nonsense. Some farmers in the audience probably felt relief. They'd taken out loans to buy tractors, worried they were being left behind. And now here was proof that the old ways still worked. Still mattered. Mitchell knew he was losing. He could see the horse teams pulling ahead, could hear the crowd's reaction. But he'd been told to trust the machine. Ford engineers had calculated everything. The Fordson's advantage wasn't speed. It was endurance. Horses got tired, steel didn't. At the halfway point, one of the lead horse teams began to falter. Not dramatically, just a slight loss of rhythm. The driver noticed it first, felt the reins go slack in his hands for a fraction of a second. The team was tiring. They'd pulled hard in the early going, establishing that lead, and now they were paying for it. The driver adjusted, shifted weight to the other teams, but that just meant more load on already working animals. The tractor maintained 3.5 miles per hour. Exactly. Never faster, never slower. The engine temperature stayed constant. The fuel consumption stayed constant. It was a machine doing machine work, indifferent to fatigue, indifferent to the crowd, indifferent to history. See that subscribe button? It's our exchange, your way of saying, this reached me. Not about the action size, but its meaning. Hit it if this resonated, drop a like if it moved you, and comment your thoughts on this story. Let's complete this circle together. By 3/4 of an acre, the gap had closed to 20 yards. 3 horse teams were visibly struggling now. The animals were built for power, not sustained work over distance. They pulled in bursts, needed rest between efforts. But there was no rest here. Just forward motion against 18 inches of resistance, through soil that seemed to fight every inch. Mitchell felt the shift in the crowd. The cheering had quieted. People were watching the horses, really watching them. Seeing the sweat on their flanks, the foam at their mouths, and the way their heads dropped lower with each passing minute. Some of the animals were limping. Not badly, but enough to notice. Enough to worry. At 900 yards, the tractor pulled even. The horses made one final push. Their drivers knew what was happening, knew they were about to lose, and pride demanded they try. 10 teams surged forward, 40 animals giving everything they had left. They pulled ahead by 10 yards. 15. For a moment, it looked like they might hold on, and then 2 horses in the lead team collapsed. Not from injury, from exhaustion. They simply couldn't pull anymore, their bodies refusing to continue. The veterinarian on site rushed to check them, found elevated heart rates but no permanent damage. They'd be fine with rest. But they were done. The team behind them tangled in the reins, 3 more horses going down in a confused heap. The other teams tried to compensate, but the coordination was broken. What had been synchronized power became chaos. The Fordson crossed the finish line at 9:53 hours. At 1 hour, 5 minutes, total time. The plow cut clean through the full acre, 18 inches deep, uniform furrows. The horses finished 12 minutes later, after the fallen animals were untangled and the teams reorganized. But everyone knew it didn't matter. The race was over long before the official end. 3,000 people stood in silence. This was the moment American farmers understood. Not that tractors were better than horses. Better wasn't the point. The point was that horses had a limit. They got tired. And they got hurt. They needed food and rest and care. A tractor needed fuel and maintenance, but it would run for as many hours as you could feed it. It would pull the same load at the same speed from dawn until midnight if you asked it to. And in a country where farms were getting bigger, where competition demanded more production from less land, that reliability mattered more than tradition. The Midwest Teamsters Association packed up that afternoon. They'd scheduled demonstrations at 6 more fairs, but they canceled all of them. There was no point. The message had changed. Within a year, horse sales for agricultural work dropped 30%. Within 5 years, the Fordson Model F became the best-selling tractor in America, with over 700,000 units in operation. Thomas Mitchell sold 18 tractors in the next month. The Des Moines dealership became one of Ford's top performers. Mitchell himself became a regional sales manager, training other dealers on demonstration techniques. He died in 1952, buried in a family plot outside Des Moines. His obituary mentioned the race once, and a single line about the day he changed farming in Iowa. The 40 horses from that demonstration all found home. Several were purchased by logging companies in the Pacific Northwest, where terrain made tractors impractical. A few went to smaller farms that couldn't afford mechanization. Most were retired to pasture, their working days over. The last known survivor, a Belgian mare named Duchess, died in 1942 at the age of 23. The Fordson Model F remained in production until 1928, when it was replaced by more advanced designs. But its legacy lived on in every tractor that followed. The principle demonstrated that September Day in Iowa, that sustained mechanical power could replace animal labor, became the foundation of modern agriculture. It wasn't about replacing horses with tractors. It was about replacing limits with capability. Footage of the race exists in the University of Iowa archives. 9 minutes of grainy 16mm film, no sound, shot from the judge's platform. You can see the horses pulling ahead early. You can see the tractor's steady pace. You can see the moment when everything changed. Researchers digitized it in 2003. Fewer than 1,000 people have watched it. The story isn't about which was better, horses or tractors, tradition or progress. The story is about the day 3,000 people watched the future prove itself, 1 acre at a time, and had to reckon with what that meant for everything they knew. If this story moved you the way it moved us, hit that like button. Subscribe for more forgotten stories. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Thank you for keeping these memories alive.